Hello, welcome viewers to my YouTube channel. Today's lecture will be on compression members. So in this lecture, as I will be covering introduction to these compression members, next failure modes, behavior of compression members. Next we will be studying the different sections used for compression members. Next, the effective length for these compression members. Next part, ultimately we will design these compression members. Okay, so if you look into the definition of these compression members, it is a straight structural member which is carrying axial compressive force along the axis. So this is called as a compression member. So where we find different types of compression members. So here the different types are vertical compression member. So that is a column in a building, and inclined compression member. So that is strut, and we have another member which is found in the crane. So that element is called as a boom. Okay. So to have a clear idea regarding these elements, so we will look into this building structure. So we have a frame here, a building frame, which is a multi-story frame. So in this, these vertical members are called as these compression members are called as a column, and these inclined members which are braced here, so this is a strut. So this vertical compression member is a column and these inclined members are strut. And even we find these compression members in roof truss. So in this roof truss, here this inclined member is called as strut. Let's look into some more figures. Okay, so here you have a clear picture regarding this compression member in a multi-story building. So in this multi-story building, so this is a bracing system where we have different types of compression members. In this building, this vertical member is a column and these bracings are nothing but strut. And if I take a industrial building, so here I find a vertical member as a column, and in this roof truss, these elements, these inclined members are compression members which are named as what? Struts. And these top chord members, even these are also a compression members. So we commonly known by a name rafter. Okay, these are the rafters. Okay, so we have different names. So based on location, based on these lengths, columns, we call these as columns, struts, bracing, boom, okay, principal rafter. Okay. So once again I want to clear out the definition of that compression member. So it is a structural member which is subjected to a compressive forces along its axis is called a compression member. So here, so let's zoom in into this building frame. So here how it is subjected. So we have a joint intermediate column. If this is an intermediate support, so I will zoom in. So this is an intermediate support where these two members are meeting at this joint. Due to these members, so these members are a beam elements of a building, and this is a column, vertical member. So how do we how this force in this column, how this force is acting in this column, it is acting vertically, so it is acting axially. Okay, so which is concentrically acting axially. So this force P is the sum of these shear forces which are from these beam elements. Okay, and the moment will be 0 in these intermediate columns, because if we have a equivalent spacing between these two bays, then obviously the moments are equal, so then it will be 0. So only we have a force which is acting in this column is P. So that column is called as axially loaded column. Okay, now let's look into the failure modes of these compression members. So we have these different types of failures which are happening in the compression members. This first one is called squashing, or generally this is a crushing. Okay, next local buckling, overall flexural buckling. Next failure, torsional and flexural torsional buckling. It's a combination of both flexural and torsional buckling. So what is this squashing? If you look into this first one, so this squashing occurs in short columns. So we have again these columns are classified in three types. So one we have short column. So one is a short, long, intermediate. So we have these classifications of these compression members. So the failure which occurs in short columns is squashing or crushing of that column. So while we design these type of columns, so we will be interested in knowing its yield strength. So it is same as how we find the compressive strength of a cube. So what do we find there? We will find the yield strength of that material. If it yields, then the material starts failing. So it is the same concept what we follow here also. So in short columns, where the columns loaded up to their yield stress. Okay, so that if the squash load is more, then the column fails by squashing or crushing. Next type of failure is a local buckling. See, this is a buckling. Buckling in the sense is a bending, a nature. Literally the meaning of buckling is what? It bends, or the imperfections in the member. So local buckling, if I have a sections like I angle channel. Okay, say if I have a section I section, angle section, C section, or a channel, so we have the buckling in these elements. Separate out these elements like flange elements. This top one is a flange element, this is a web element, or say for this angle, this is a one element and this is a one element. So we have some imperfections in these elements, so that is called as a local buckling in the compression members. So that we have to take care of this local buckling. So this is also one failure. Next we have overall, third one, this overall flexural buckling. So in this overall flexural buckling will happen in long columns. So it's a bending of the column, long column. It's a bending. So it's a flexural buckling. What I call this as a flexural buckling. If this is a vertical member, okay, if there is a load acting like this, axially load, then column tends to bend like this, so it is called as a flexural buckling. Next type of failure is a torsional buckling or a torsional failure or a buckling. So this is a twisting in unsymmetric sections like angle sections. If the angles are loaded unsymmetrically, then this type of failure occurs. So this is called as what? Torsional or a twisting of a section or a member. By this it fails. Next we have the flexural torsional buckling. There is a combination of this bending as well as twisting. So this also a failure which occurs in unsymmetric section or closed sections like a box type of sections. So later we will come to understand what are these sections, what type of sections are used in compression members. So accordingly we have to choose to take care of these all failures. Accordingly we have to choose the sections to take care of these failures. Okay, next part in this compression member, so we will look into this, how the compression behaves, compression member behavior. It's a behavior of compression member. So before understanding the behavior of this compression member, let us classify the types of compression members based on their length. So as I told earlier, we have three types of classification. One is short compression member, so long compression member, this is second classification. Third one, intermediate length compression members. So this classification is important to know the behavior of compression member. Okay, so what is this short compression member? So for very short compression members, the failure stress will be equal to the yield stress. Means the failure stress or a yield stress, it will be equal. Means the column starts crushing. That short column failure will be in the form of crushing. So there will be no buckling in short compression members or in short columns. So the failure will be in crushing, because when the failure stress is equal to the yield stress, it starts crushing. So that type of load is called as squash load. It is given as simply P equals to F into A or Fy into A. Fy is the yield stress and area of the member, cross sectional area. Next classification is long compression members. So these long compression members, we find there is a buckling in these compression members. So for this buckling, it follows a Euler's formula. So here this Euler's formula predicts the strength of long compression members. Such compression members will buckle elastically. So regarding this, we will have a bit explanation how it buckles. It follows Euler's theory. Okay. Next type of classification is intermediate length compression members. So wherein we find the fibers here yield and some will be in elastic. So these members will fail by both yielding and buckling. So this is the behavior which is inelastic in this type of compression members. The behavior of this intermediate length compression member is inelastic, because we have both the things happening here. Which one? Which is yield in the member, and as well as there is a elastic buckling also. Okay. Now let's look into the behavior of this compression member. So for a long compression member, so elastic buckling of Euler column. So as we know that the long compression members are susceptible to buckle. As we know, long compression members, short compression members will crush, and if we take a long compression or a long columns, it buckles. Okay, so what is buckling force and stress required to cause this buckling in the column has to be found. So our aim is to find the buckling force and the stress required to cause this buckling in the long column. So here Euler is a scientist's name which he has considered an ideal column. So actually this is from strength of material. So he has considered an ideal column to find out a critical load for buckling. So this critical load is obtained due to buckling on the basis of assumptions. So here Euler's theory of column buckling assumptions what he made. So this first assumption is the material is homogeneous and isotropic. Material is perfectly elastic. There is no imperfections. That is, member is straight at its initial state. Next assumption is no eccentric loading considered as concentric load. Column ends are hinged. So here we have a clear view of a long column. So this P is a critical load, PCR. So this is the load which tends to buckle this member. So what should be this load? Critical load which causing this member to buckle in this way. Okay, let us consider according to his assumptions he has derived what should be the critical load. Okay, so both ends are hinged. So as we know from strength of materials, this critical load PCR equal to pi square EI by L square, where E is Young's modulus of the material. So we are using a steel material here. Okay, so we are into a steel structures. So we have a Young's modulus of this material. So we will having a steel material Young's modulus. I is the moment of inertia and L is the length. Okay, effective length. Okay, and this stress required is given as P by A, PCR by A, where PCR again it is pi square EI by AL square, where again this stress sigma CR equals to pi square E R square by L square, where this R square is I by A, where R is radius of gyration, where R is radius of gyration. It is given by I by A. It's a I over A. So again it is modified here. So I by A is nothing but R square. So here sigma CR equals to pi square E R square by L square. Again still modified pi square E by L by R square, where L by R square again here it is modified pi square into E by lambda square, where lambda square is L by R. Lambda square is L by R. So it is a slenderness ratio. It is called as lambda is called as slenderness ratio. So this critical stress is inversely proportional to slenderness ratio. So what it means here, if lambda value increases, the stress gets reduced in the column. So the load carrying capacity of these columns get reduced if the slenderness ratio value gets increased. So it is inversely proportional here. So lambda is inversely proportional to critical stress. Somewhere or in clear meaning, failure occurs for minimum radius of gyration. So just you remember this, that if to increase this load carrying capacity in the column, your lambda or slenderness ratio value should be very less, then that buckling cause will be very less. Okay, thank you.